There are so-called black and red zones in the post-Soviet space, and the former have recently become much smaller. The difference between black and red zones lies in who sets order there and whose laws work there. In the 90s and early 2000s, there was also another kind of colonies, Makhnovist zones. Here everything was very bleak. The one who is stronger is right. Here the level of lawlessness reached its peak. Black zone. The order in the black zones is monitored by the Blatniks. They are guided by concepts, criminal ideology, and also follow the instructions of thieves in the law. The latter, if they are not in the colony, appoint representatives, poslušenci, or watchmen. Also in such zones, funds are collected in the common fund. The bosses make sure that the detainees who are in the punitive isolation center or in the reinforced regime area always have tea and cigarettes. In such colonies, the administration does not try to control the blacks, i.e. Blatniks, in any way. The point is that the Blatniks can ensure order, and in some cases, they can bring money into the prison. With the money collected from other detainees, the Blatniks can make repairs or, for example, refuel cars. Of course, corruption should not be excluded. With the help of bribes to the administration, the Blatniks can get alcohol, drugs, and get the necessary connections. Now, the policy of the Federal Penitentiary Service is aimed at eradicating black zones, so that the colonies do not live according to the blatant notions, but fully obey the rules of the administration. Therefore, such prisons are gradually disappearing. In addition, various laws are also adopted. As an example, a ban on the promotion of the AUE movement, which complicate the promotion of Blatnaya romance, which also affects the prisons. Now, collecting dormitories and appointing managers to prisons threatens criminal sentences for the elite of the underworld, thieves in law. Just 10 years ago, there were a lot of black zones, and now there are very few. In addition, most often the zone changes its color because of riots, which now occur very rarely. Red zones. The order in the red zones is also monitored by convicts, but they, unlike the Blatniks, actively cooperate with the administration. The interest of such detainees is quite understandable, because they receive for these various kinds of indulgences, can get a good characteristic, and also go out on parole. But if on the contrary you do not obey, then it will be extremely difficult for such a person to sit in such a prison. Blatni, such convicts who work for the administration, are called knitted, goats, woolly. Previously, this caste of prisoners was one of the most disrespected in prison, but given that now many zones have become red, the attitude to goats has become different. Now the real goats are considered to be those who sit in press huts, where testimony or other information is extracted from a person on the instructions of the administration. Those who abuse, beat other prisoners, and rob them are also considered goats. In the red zones, re-education of Blatniks often takes place at the direction of the administration. Blacks are beaten and do to them whatever they are ordered from above. This is encouraged by various bonuses, including pluses for parole. There were many cases when lawlessness on the part of activists reached the point where riots broke out in the zone. There are colonies where people are deliberately made goats, beaten, threatened, blackmailed. It is worth saying that in most cases such people are treated normally and with understanding, but such a person will never make a criminal career. In both red and black zones, the main contingent is men. In essence, they are neutral convicts who are neither Blatniks nor assholes. They work, don't break the rules, etc. They are interested only in one thing, to serve their time and get out faster. Green. Zones over the last 10 years Green zones have begun to appear in Russia. Here, prisoners are managed by people who have been convicted of religious extremism. They create peculiar jamaats, Muslim associations. They ignore Blatt notions, but also do not fulfill the requirements of the administration. In general, they live their own life. The danger of such prisons is that if various radicals, terrorists get here, they start to recruit followers. There are more and more such prisoners, and the prison is coloured green. Such jamaats take in outcasts. There are especially many such zones in Siberia. In essence, these prisons are a type of red zone. Here sit mostly former law enforcement officers who cannot be put in a regular prison, for obvious reasons. There are no Blatniks here in the classical sense. Moors here are much cooler than in the usual red or black zones. The Kops zone also has its own hierarchy, traditions and orders that date back to the times of the Soviet Union. In Soviet times, there was only one prison for former employees, which was located in Nizhny Tagil. Now there are 5 of them in Russia. In a regular zone, a former employee, BS, will quickly die, and the one who does will receive honor and respect from the Blatniks. The prison in Nizhny Tagil appeared back in the 50s of the last centuries, when there was a bitch war between former frontline soldiers and Blatniks. Then the authorities needed to separate some from others and stop the war. Thus, the special zone appeared. By the end of the 50s, it already contained convicted BS. The prison in Nizhny Tagil is designed to hold 1,200 detainees. Other zones in the Russian Federation are almost the same. The Kops zone has its own authorities. They include former employees of colonies, regime officers of detention centers, and operatives. Former criminal investigation operatives are considered the elite. These people have seen a lot and therefore can be too harsh. Others do not mess with them. There are also various kinds of law enforcers, special forces, and so on. If, in a regular zone, a man is an ordinary person, in a special zone it is former traffic policemen, investigators, duty officers, interrogators, patrolmen, etc. They do not try to be authoritative, but they will not lower themselves. There are also the lowest ranks in the Kops zones. They include lawyers. Everyone knows that they are mostly cunning and shrewd people who stick sticks in the wheels of the investigation. Also despise former judges and prosecutors. Often, they can't even stand up for themselves, as they led a desk life on the outside. By the way, these are the lowest caste in the Kops zone, Koks. Where exactly it is better to sit is an individual question. Many people in general prefer to serve the whole term in a pre-trial detention center, and it often happens. For example, the investigation is too long and the person under investigation spends all this time in the detention center, and during the decisive court hearing after the announcement of the verdict, the person is simply released, saying that he has served his entire sentence. Usually, the time spent in the pre-trial detention center is counted as the main term, or even more, a day for 2 in the colony. If a person did not engage in criminal activity on the outside, committed a crime by accident, by stupidity, in general, it does not matter where to sit. As it was said earlier, the caste of men is essentially the same everywhere, whether in the red or black zone. If you are connected with crime, then it will be better in the black zone, where people like you are sitting, and it will be easier for you to live by the concepts, especially if you are guided by them in freedom. You should also take into account that red and black zones may be different, and the order in them may also differ from each other. For example, somewhere in the black zone strictly adhere to thieves' concepts, and a conditional rapist or paedophile there will be, to put it mildly, will not be honoured. But in another black zone, everything may be different. You will sit like the others. The same goes for red zones. Somewhere everyone lives according to the order established by the administration and everything suits everyone. And somewhere detainees are bullied, begging for money and testimony.